The Raptors lose in New York on the second night of a back-to-back with no Jakob Poeltl or RJ Barrett. They tried, but fell short. Let's go to the film room.
The only thing that's originally filmed is that and I've studied older films and tried to figure out how I got that impression. I was getting these right in the cutting room.
The unique thing about film is an art form
exactly.
is the editing.
The Raptors lost against the Knicks, but it wasn't for a lack of effort by Scottie Barnes, who was magnificent on both sides of the floor. And truthfully, he's been the one silver lining for this team over the course of this back-to-back. He was the primary defender on Karl Anthony Towns. Offensively, he did a little bit of everything, working in the dunker spot here to finish early on in the game, working with Jamison Battle. And I love when he gets a guard to screen for him because there's so many options out of this, right? Battle, a bigger guard can kind of roll to the basket, and Battle started in this game, his first start of his career, or he could pop out here, and it forces the defense to make a ton of decisions. This time, Battle just slips and rolls, and Scottie with the nice hit ahead. I've mentioned how I appreciate Scottie isn't settling as much as last season, and while this was a wide open lane, a lot of the times these would end up as pull-up jumpers. This time just barreling to the basket and, again, working on Karl Anthony Towns in the post. Really good job of like, hey, I'm going to front, but I'm also going to shoot this gap, get this steal, and use my length. But look, Scottie is also shooting 40% from three this season, and he's doing it on nearly 4 attempts a game. He was on fire. He was one of the main reasons the Raptors got back into this game with his three-point shooting, a lot of it above the break. He's smooth, calm, and collected. He's obviously worked on his form to be a little bit more consistent, and it looks really, really good when he has it going from three like this. It also forces the defense into a lot of tough situations. And so while the Raptors lost in this game, and it wasn't particularly close, although there were portions of it where the Raptors fought back and came back and clawed back and tried their hardest to try and, make an effort of this one. They lost 116-94. They were clearly outmatched, folks. The size advantage was obvious. The Knicks had 61 rebounds in this game compared to the Raptors' 40. They had 25 offensive rebounds compared to the Raptors' 14. The size advantage very, very much so mattered in this game. Mitchell Robinson was a beast. He ended up with 7 offensive rebounds and 15 rebounds total. It was huge. But there were moments where things started to look a little bit better. They dug a hole for themselves, especially in that first quarter when Deuce McBride honestly, everybody on the Knicks was just knocking down their threes at an alarming rate. I will say, I mentioned this before and I got a lot of heat for it, but it still is true. The Raptors defense was getting a little bit lucky throughout their win streak. Opponents were shooting 30% from three against them, despite the fact that they were in the top 10 in opponent three-point attempts. So teams were taking a lot of threes against them, but they weren't making a lot of threes against them. And I think that's a little bit of luck. That luck came raining down on them against the Knicks. And the Knicks are a really good three-point shooting team. They have basically plus shooters at every position with Karl Anthony Towns, with Mikal Bridges. Josh Hart shot the ball well tonight. Jalen Brunson. Deuce McBride, of course. Jordan Clarkson. Go down the roster, and it's hard to find a player who doesn't shoot the ball well other than Mitchell Robinson. And he is there for a very specific need. They shot 16 of 45 from three, whereas the Raptors went 11 of 37. And a lot of the Raptors' threes were from Immanuel Quickley tonight, 4 of 10. Scottie Barnes also ended up with 4 of 7. So the three-point shooting disparity, coupled with the fact that the rebounding was obviously a massive disadvantage for the Raptors, it was very hard for them to try and win this game. They still made a game of it for portions. They cut the lead down, especially in that second quarter. Scottie was a big part of that. And truthfully, I kind of want to, what I want to do is look at this back-to-back in its entirety, right? A tough, scoreless outing in 5 minutes of basketball in the fourth quarter versus the Hornets, which leads to a loss for them in a game where they probably absolutely should have won, and a game where they're undermanned against A Knicks team that is playing good basketball, that is obviously very, very talented, and they just didn't have enough firepower to do so. I am less mad about the Knicks loss than I am about the Hornets loss. I think the Knicks loss was about as scheduled as it comes because of them missing Jakob Poeltl, them missing RJ Barrett, and Brandon Ingram not playing his best basketball in this one. So BI ended up with 4 of 11 from the field, 14 points, 1 rebound, 4 assists, and the big number that I'm looking at right now is 5 turnovers. BI really struggled to get things going in this game. And that's part of, the conversation over the last this back-to-back, really, right? I think Sampson mentioned it, but he was 0-14 at one point between the fourth quarter against the Hornets and the start of this Knicks game until he started hitting shots in the second half of the game against the Knicks. So he's going through a bit of a rough patch as a scorer right now over the weekend. That's fine. We've just talked about how awesome he was. I mean, look, he just hit a game winner against the Pacers. And I've mentioned, especially in that Hornets recap, if you guys want to go ahead and take a look, but there is a level of over-reliance on him right now because of the fact that RJ Barrett isn't here, because of the fact that I think they are leaning on his mid-range repertoire a little bit too much to be the bailout for them offensively. It looks great when it goes in, when it's not going in, when the ball isn't flying, when the ball isn't moving, and truthfully, when they aren't moving off ball, it leaves a lot to be desired. So let's look at some of these BI turnovers and dissect what's happening here. So here he does a good job against Brunson, who's fronting to try and get the overhead pass. He's in the paint. He's got 2 feet in the restricted area, but unfortunately just an ill-advised pass falling out of bounds directly through the Knicks defense. Thought the Knicks defense, and particularly Mikal Bridges, did a good job of utilizing their length against him. And look at this. So pausing it here, there's 3 defenders surrounding BI. Deuce McBride is digging in. Karl Anthony Towns is showing. And Mikal is going to be able to use his length here against the ball. And so there's a lot of activity against Brandon Ingram here. And not a ton of respect, right? Jameson Battle here as well. Immanuel Quickley above the break. There's not a lot of respect being given. And very easy opportunity out of bounds. Same situation here, just ill-advised pass and good defense by Mikal Bridges, who uses his length to poke out this ball. Again, look at the angles and windows he's trying to attack here. So, Mitchell Robinson is pinched in. Mikal Bridges is pinched in. Deuce McBride is on his hip and is trailing. No one's really respecting Jamal Shed. Ochai Agbaji, while he's decently respected here, like Jalen Brunson, is pinched in as well. There's just a lot of attention on what Brandon Ingram is doing. And so, boom, poke out. And so, I don't think it's necessarily all Brandon Ingram's fault. I think his decision-making can be a little bit quicker. I think the Raptors can do a lot more off ball to make his life a little bit easier. And I think some of those, if you look at those actions that I just showed you, a lot of them were him initiating above the break, right? Being like this creator above the break. And truthfully, not having a good screener like Jakob Poeltl to lay out his initial defender. That's why Jakob is so important for him to create separation and be able to get that space to operate in the mid-range area. He didn't have that tonight. And I think getting him working as an off-screen player, the Raptors are number 1 in off-screen efficiency this season. A lot of that is because of Brandon Ingram. Those wide pin down that they do for BI, or those curling actions, or the Iverson cut that they do for Brandon Ingram. A lot of those opportunities come because, 1, he's coming off of movement, and 2, he's working off of multiple screens to be able to get an advantage. That, when he's working in isolation or he's working with a pick and roll partner that isn't necessarily the greatest screener, it's tough. It's tough, man. And truthfully, I think I don't want to put too much into 2 bad games for Brandon Ingram when the start of his season has been pretty spectacular. And I think the one thing that I would the one lesson, if we wanted to go about lessons learned from these back-to-back losses, the one lesson is that there is a level of over-reliance on Brandon Ingram offensively. Now, how do you diversify, right? How do you diversify, especially when Jakob Poeltl isn't on the floor? That's the other thing. You can't run your IQ yak actions as much because you don't have that separation for IQ to get downhill. IQ had a good game tonight. A lot of that was in spite of Jakob not being there, or despite Jakob not being there. I'll break that down in a second and why that worked. Screen rejects. But overall, they didn't have their pillars, right? And I've mentioned this so many times. I'm going to keep beating this drum. The Raptors have pillars offensively. The pinch post off-screen stuff for Brandon Ingram. The pinch post off-screen stuff for Scottie Barnes. The transition stuff, obviously. The dribble handoff, pick and roll stuff for RJ Barrett. And then the pick and roll stuff between IQ and Jakob Poeltl. How many of those things are available to them right now? Jakob Poeltl didn't play tonight, so the Yak stuff is out the window. And, RJ Barrett isn't there, so that's out the window. So really all they have is transition opportunities and BI office screens and Scottie in pinch post situations. And, that's just not enough to have what the Raptors were the number one half court offense, right? They just don't have enough right now to be able to sustain. It's hard to take too much from what these games were outside of that ugly loss against the Hornets. I'm okay with this loss against the Knicks because it felt undermanned. It felt like they fought, but just didn't have enough in the tank to do it. Let's talk about Immanuel Quickley because I thought Quick was pretty good in this one. He, again, back in New York, right, doing his thing. 19 points, 8 assists, 7 of 14 from the field, 4 of 10 from 3. He had this burst in the second half where he was knocking down a ton of shots. But I thought his playmaking was the best here tonight. Let's break down how he got to his playmaking tonight. So leveraging his pull-up in transition. IQ is so deadly with the pull-up in this area of the floor. So teams are going to pick him up a little bit higher than they do usually for any other guard in transition, knowing this. And so he does a great job of getting Josh Hart off of his spot with this nice little up fake. And great job of getting downhill, recognizing the cutting Ochai, finds him for the alley-oop. Now in half court, very same play, right? Screen reject, right? Scottie is coming with the screen. The defense in Tyler Kolek is already preparing to go right with this and try to fight over. Quick uses that to his advantage, rejects this screen, and is able to get downhill. So if you see here, screen reject, boom, burst to the basket, and a beautiful live dribble pass to BI, who knocks down this three. Exact same thing here. BI as the screener. Screen reject, get downhill, draw the help, finding the cutting Scottie, and a beautiful dime there by Quick. And so these are the type of things that I think are actually very good to see from Immanuel Quickley as he works to improve his playmaking, making these progressive reads, especially the live dribble pass to the weak side. That was really nice. I think overall, it's imperative to have him become a little bit better on ball, especially when you have RJ Barrett out, because you need him to be, again, more of a pillar of your offense, more of a function of what your offense requires. Colin Murray-Boyles was also great in this game. He, after a slow game in Charlotte in his homecoming game, tonight he played 22 minutes, 11 points, 5 offensive rebounds, 8 rebounds total, 1 assist, 2 assists, and 1 steal. I thought CMB did a great job of maximizing his opportunities in transition, working to be that guy who's finishing in hit-ahead pass opportunities. He's also working in the dunker spot to be a guy to, finish easy garbage man type layups. At the same time, I love what he provides at the point of attack. He had this really nice steal against Josh Hart and pushed it in transition for the finish. This is the type of rookie stuff that I thought CMB could do in terms of getting the easy opportunities offensively, crashing the offensive glass, and at the same time being a menace at the point of attack. He is so good positionally on defense already. The fact that he's able to guard out so high up the floor despite his size and his physicality is wildly impressive. I would love to see more, and I'd love to see more opportunities for him. The Raptors, unfortunately, lose this game. They also lose the game against the Hornets, and the Hornets' loss was undoubtedly uglier than this one. What do you look for moving forward? Do you press the panic button after 2 games, despite the fact that before that they had won 13 of their last 15 games? It's hard to do that, But at the same time, there are valuable lessons to be learned from losses. And as I mentioned in their Hornets one, a humbling is a good thing, Getting humbled by these losses, especially early in the season, is a good thing to do because you don't become overzealous on, like your feelings and your confidence in yourself. I think overall, they can now go back to the drawing board, go back to the film room, and also just be able to like look within themselves to say, all right, cool, what do we need, right? We still haven't got much from the shooting guard conundrum, I thought Jacoby Walter knocked down some nice shots tonight. I thought Ochai Agbaji played better tonight. Grady Dick still struggling from three-point land. Didn't even take a three in this game. So they haven't got much from the shooting guard position yet, outside of RJ Barrett, of course. When is RJ Barrett coming back? That's the other question that we will be looking at for the rest of this week, because on Wednesday, they said that he would be reevaluated in a week. So it's unlikely that he plays against Portland. We'll probably get some sort of update this week as far as how he's progressing. It doesn't seem like he's going to be missing any sort of serious time. So will he be back in time for their NBA Cup game in 10 days? That's a question to be asked. Jakob Poeltl. So the Raptors will be playing another back-to-back this week, but against the Lakers and Hornets. Will he be playing in the first leg of that back-to-back against the Lakers, or will he be playing in the second leg of the back-to-back against the Hornets to try and secure a win against a team that they lost to just recently? So some of these questions as they enter an interesting stretch. I think this is their first, outside of that 1-4 kind of like, hey, this is fate of the universe type of stuff where like, is this season going to go downhill, right? It looked like doomsday type stuff when they were 1-4 and they very quickly course corrected. This one is more of a test of like, hey, let's see how real you guys are. Because now you have Portland on Tuesday, you have the Lakers and Hornets, you have the Celtics, you have the Knicks, and then you have the Bucks afterwards, depending on how you do in the NBA Cup. These are good teams, right? The Hornets are at least feisty. The Lakers are a good team. The Blazers are a good team. The Celtics are a good team. And of course, you just lost to the Knicks, and the NBA Cup has its own, stakes, if you will. This is a very, very good test for a young group that has turned some heads, that has exceeded expectations, that has gotten the attention of the NBA world. I mean, I just finished recording the NBA Daily, and my co-hosts, Dave and Zena, were both vouching for Darko to be Coach of the Year. And usually I'm the person in that boat saying, Darko should win Coach of the Year and Scottie should win this, et cetera, et cetera. But it was them doing the vouching. I didn't even have to do it for them. And I think like that goes to show you how much attention this Raptors team is getting. And what are you going to do when you have this attention? People are now watching. Their eyebrows are raised. Can you keep their eyebrows raised? Can you make them go from we're interested to now you have my attention? If you guys remember that scene from, I don't know if you ever watched Django, but there's a scene where Leonardo DiCaprio is like, well, actually, damn, I'm gonna fumble this thing, aren't I? Oh no, hold on. No, I want to get this right. Django. Okay, yes. Shout out to this meme. You had my curiosity, sir, but now you have my attention. I think the NBA world is very curious about the Toronto Raptors. Perhaps for some, the attention is there, but now they are entering a moment over the next 10 days where that curiosity can turn into attention. And can they maximize on that attention? Can they go from fun, interesting, cool team to start the season to a legitimate, fun playoff team? That is what this next stretch of basketball will determine for the Toronto Raptors. You had my curiosity. Now you have my attention. That's what the world is saying to the Toronto Raptors. Can you do it? That's the question. All right, folks. As always, I fumbled that little quote, but it doesn't matter. My acting coach would kill me if he knew that, but it doesn't matter. As always, like, comment, subscribe, do those things you guys usually do. We appreciate you as always, and we'll see you guys later. See you for Portland. Peace.